So good afternoon, everyone, for the courageous one that stay with us. Thank you very much. So yeah, this session, I did this panel session because I wanted to have more deep discussion, and especially with some founders, in fact, of the science that are important, especially in a post-COVID era, because my experience in emerging disease field is that we experience some wave in terms of funding, and it was very difficult to sustain some funding to make some long-term research. And this is a big problem because the climate change is still there and will be always there, so it will influence the emergence of new diseases, and we always face the problem of health and climate change in the long term. So today we will have like 3 speakers that has been introduced, and we start with Dr. Hong-Sang Lee from the Wright Foundation. So thank you for joining us for this panel discussion, and I let you introduce your foundation, and we will have a few discussions.
So just introduction.
If you want to have like a 5 minutes introduction, and then we can after have some exchange.
Okay. So hello, my name is Hong-Sang Lee. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer of the Wright Foundation. So Wright Foundation is a foundation established by Korean government, Ministry of Health and Welfare, and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and Korean healthcare industry partners' contributions. And we fund, we provide funding for R&D of health technologies such as vaccines, diagnostics, therapeutics. Lately, we are also doing some of the works in the area of digital health, targeting the infectious disease in LMICs. Actually, many of the infectious diseases in LMICs are actually those diseases which are climate change related. Actually, today's forum was quite eye-opening. I did not know that there is currently the dengue outbreak with such a concern in Italy with the chikungunya and others. But again, we had been funding many of the grant for project for development of vaccine, therapeutics, and diagnostics. And over our a little bit more than 5 years of existence, since 2018 when we were established, so far we had been providing funding for a little bit more than 50 grants in the area of vaccine, therapeutics, and diagnostics, and others. And as for the disease across over the 15, a little bit more than 15 disease areas. Lately, one of the disease category that we added was any kind of disease with pandemic potential, which again I think has a climate-related aspect as well. So as for some of the diseases that we are covering, there is malaria, SFTS, obviously dengue, and also most of the NTDs, neglected tropical disease, defined by WHO, those a little bit more than about 20 diseases in the NTD categories are all our target disease. And as for some of the projects that we are financing, is some of the area in the leishmaniasis, schistosomiasis, and also we are funding new generation of conjugate cholera vaccine as well, targeting the cholera issues. As you can see, many of these diseases are prevalent in LMICs, but also climate related. So quite a large portion of our grants are already involving disease that are affected by climate change. So I think in a way, even though our foundation have not really stated it up front, but I think in a way, we're already in the game. And some of the institutions that we had been funding had been IVI, IPK, obviously, and DNDi in the area of NTDs. and also in the area of AMR, GARD-P. So let's say, for example, like cholera vaccines, there has been increasing prevalence of an incidence of cholera globally. Really, it seems like there is kind of a small scale of cholera outbreak, very silent outbreak, caused by large scale internally displaced populations or some of the civil war and political instability, but also I think some of the some of the cause of this cholera increase probably are also related with the climate change as well, with changing climate. So I think that is also one of the important area that we are involved. And lately we have increased emphasis on AMR, for AMR antibiotics, but also for diagnostic tools options. For example, what we are really looking for, what we will be also looking for in the future with more of the focus will be AMR diagnostic tool for both treating of the patients purpose of related to AMR situations, but also any of the POCT or any of the simple and cheaper diagnostic tool options for AMR, which can be potentially used for AMR surveillance in an area where there are increasing AMR situations. Today, I think it was really great to look at the presentation which talks about DID evaluations, assessment of causality of temperature increase, ambient temperature increase in AMR. So in those kind of areas, we are hoping that maybe those tools that we will be funding can be used for more easy and more widely applicable AMR tool, surveillance diagnostic tool. And also, we fund any disease for the pandemic potentials. And as everybody know, increasingly, many of the pandemic-related disease will be coming from zoonotic origins, which means there will be some of the climate-related aspect of all those diseases. So, and lastly, some of the tools that we are funding with not product development, but through the evidence generation award for generating of evidence for the population level public health impact are some of the digital health tool. And currently we are funding University of Ibadan and Nigeria CDC for SOMAS, digital health tool, which are used for surveillance and reporting purpose. And this kind of surveillance and reporting tool through digital device can be readily used in very wide geographic areas for readily reporting any kind of change in the area. Let's say in countries like Asia, Southeast Asian countries where there are increasing prevalence of dengue or malaria. This kind of digital reporting tool can be also used as well. So as a conclusion, I think even though we did not say that we are having high priority in climate change, but it seems like we are already in the game. But I think after participating in this forum, I think right now we are in the process of continuous strategy modification in our foundation. And I think maybe we can potentially consider these climate change related issues as some of our policy priority area as well. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much for this description of your actions and with your foundation. And as you mentioned, you are really very well involved. And what surprised me in your association is that really you are really contributing a lot to develop global health equity, I would say. It's a very, something you highlight in your report and on your website. Equity is very important, and we know, unfortunately, that climate change will increase the unmet needs, especially in LMIC, and the difference in development. So even if you did not really emphasize on this, you are doing a lot of action already. So will it be even more visible on your next action, do you think? Is this work? Do you think you will focus more, some grant maybe, on really working on this kind of disease, on climate change, or will it be still an indirect, I would say, action in this field?
Okay, that is a little bit difficult question for me to answer right at the moment, right now. But actually, right now, our priority is quite broad and generally stated. So we are quite disease agnostic. So we are targeting all of the diseases that are prevalent in LMICs. But increasingly, we are considering to have some of the priority policy strategic focus areas. Let's say, as I said, we have increasingly we are having a keen eye on the AMR issues, and also in the technology tool areas. We are having increasing interest in the area of monoclonal antibody therapeutic options. Right now, we have currently we have a RFP up on monoclonal antibody targeting RSV, malaria, severe malaria, and disease with pandemic potential. But already, malaria and pandemic potential disease, they are climate related. So, but I think maybe in the near future, maybe we will, as we go into some of the policy or our strategy modification process, I think we can safely say that climate change will be one of the topics that we will have highly in mind. One additional thing actually that I can mention is lately we had been having a discussion with Asian Development Bank. And actually Asian Development Bank, ADB, was the one who actually kind of encouraged us to look into this climate change area. But one of the actually dialogue that we had with Asian Development Banks is we are also interested in, actually one of the funding area that we support is vaccine or pharmaceutical or diagnostic manufacturing technologies, technology transfer support for LMIC manufacturers. And usually what we did was actually providing manufacturing technology transfer for lower cost manufacturing technologies with high output of the manufacturing in the easy to apply technologies. But one of the additional aspects, actually, we are in discussion with the ADB is any of the vaccine or pharmaceutical manufacturing technology which can have a lesser CO2 footprint. So in that way, actually, we are already having quite of eyes on the climate change-related issues of not only disease related caused by climate change, but finding a way to have lesser climate impact as well. So I think I can safely say that we are already having quite of a high priority in this area.
Yes, thank you very much for your testimony, and maybe we will come back to the right foundation after. So now we will move on probably to Julien. So Julien Taris prepared some slide and as a support probably to introduce the Green Climate Fund.
First of all, thank you, particularly Dimitri, for this invitation, and also Institut Pasteur Korea, IPK, even if I try to use the French pronunciation, Institut Pasteur. I'm really glad to be here today and also to be able to present Green Climate Fund. To be honest with you, I'm not. It's a bit new for me to be and to attend such an event because I'm not a scientist. scientist, and also it's a bit new, but it's really interesting, and also where we consider that, and particularly for JCF, it's clearly decisive to investigate such these topics and to be present as maybe as a financier for that. So that's why we wanted, and I wanted to give you a short presentation of Green Climate Fund, because maybe it's not very easy to understand what's Green Climate Fund and I consider that maybe it's useful for you to know that about what is a Green Climate Fund. If we move on to the next slide, you can see the fact that the main takeaway. Thank you. You can see that Green Climate Fund is first the world's largest climate fund, and so we play a big role and a decisive role, critical role to finance climate-related investment in the world, and with maybe three main specificities, and I wanted to highlight these specificities. First of all, we have been set up by the UNFCCC, and the fund was created in 2010 and was located in Korea in 2013, because we celebrated a few weeks ago the 10th anniversary of Green Climate Fund in Korea. But the fund is really operational maybe since 2015 and Paris Agreement, because we are set up once again to serve the Paris Agreement targets. The fund is based on the main principle. We raise funds from developed countries to use them in developing countries, and so it's a specific fundraising model also, with a sort of solidarity and effort to from developed countries to developing countries. And so at this moment during COP, because you know COP just started a few days ago, for 3 days I think, and so we are raising funds from developed countries now for a new 4-year period, programmation period, so for 2024-2027. And the third specificities of Green Climate Fund is the fact that we serve as a hub of the climate finance landscape, particularly because we want to attract private sector and private investment to finance climate and climate-related investment. A short presentation also about the way we work, and I will try not to be too long for that, but just first element, because it was clearly a discussion we had, Dimitri, together about the scope of potential domains we are supposed to finance with the fund. Health is clearly a target for us, and particularly because we are involved in a sort of a shift nowadays to change the way we want to finance investment in the world, and so more and more we are involved in a more ecosystemic, holistic approach. And compared to maybe the first investment we made in maybe 2016 or 2017, we are involved in maybe more holistic approach. And health is also something we want to develop in terms of investment, in terms of interest. And so for this reason, we are really interested in this this event, and also the link between climate change and diseases. Clearly, and you can see that climate change and climate impacts are the key drivers for our investment, and so GCF is clearly involved to finance projects in favor or to develop or to create impacts, climate impacts in terms of mitigation and adaptation, because it's also, we have also a specific thesis in terms of investment, a balanced thesis between adaptation and mitigation, 50-50. More and more we want to invest maybe from a private sector perspective to adaptation project. But once again, the main target for the fund is 50-50 adaptation and mitigation. A few elements about the private sector strategy, even if we have two main teams within the Green Climate Fund, a public sector team and a private sector team. I'm part of the private sector team, and so for the private sector team, but I think it's important also for us to maybe to bear in mind the fact that we want to develop more innovation. And innovation is clearly part of the strategy and GCF strategy now and in the future, because as I mentioned maybe a bit earlier, we will start a new period from 2024 to 2027, and innovation will be a key element for us in terms of, not just in terms of technologies, but also of, in terms of financial instruments or business models and everything. So that's why we are clearly devoted to finance more innovation in the future. Once again, this thesis is also based on a sort of another major target for GCF. We can take risk because it's also part of GCF mandate. We can take risk to finance projects in developing countries because we are not driven by a sort of a profitability target, a short-term profitability target. So that's why for GCF it's possible to finance innovation due to this structure in terms of capital. Also, to understand the size and the fund size, I think it's interesting to also to keep in mind the size. So far, we have invested more than 13 billion, 30.5 billion US dollars, and with more than 10 billion under implementation for a global portfolio or about of 50 billion. It's 52 billion, so it's an important portfolio in terms of, as I mentioned, we are raising funds from developed countries, so we are waiting for the last pledges, maybe during COP, and we are targeting maybe around 12 billion. The last number was 12 billion for the last period, and so we are targeting the same amount for the next period. So it can create a sort of frame in terms of capacities and investment capacities for the future. Just also a few things about the portfolio quite rapidly in terms of breakdown, and so you can see that we have public projects for around 200 projects and more than 50 projects for private sector, and so you can see that it's two-thirds and one-third in terms of breakdown. And nowadays we are developing a new pipeline of projects for the future period 2024-2027, and particularly, and as I mentioned earlier, in the field of innovation, with the target, even if we can mobilize a wide scope of financial instruments such as grants or loans, equity, guarantee, and so on, we are able to do quite everything, if I can say that, in terms of financial instrument. But we would like to maybe to crowd in more private capital, and so maybe to increase the part of private sector project in the future. But once again, we have also high number of public-private projects led by maybe public or private sector, but with a sort of, co-financing or also support of the other part. So public-private projects are also key for a Green Climate Fund. And the last slide in terms of regional distribution, because I think it's important also to understand that and to understand the distribution. It's quite balanced between the main regions for a Green Climate Fund. And you can see that it's also a target because GCF has a very specific governance. We have a board, and the board is, we are a country-driven organization, so led by a board. And the board is made up of developed and developing countries, so it's a specific governance also for us, with 2 co-chairs for 1 year, one coming from a developed country and another one from a developed country. So that's why it's also something decisive for us to maybe to manage the portfolio in terms of geography and geographic distribution for the future. And so it's also something we want to take into account when we decide to invest in a project in every case. Thank you for that. Thank you for your attention, and I will be really happy to answer your questions.
Yeah. Thank you, Julien, so for this explanation of your action. And in fact, I want to stress that unfortunately, Rachel Lowe was not able to be with us online. I invited her because she's part of the Lancet Countdown. This is an international research collaboration that monitor the evolving impact on climate change and health, and the emerging health opportunities of climate action. So unfortunately, she cannot explain this, but in her report, in the report they made, so that was launched on November 14, it was a few weeks before the COP28, she mentioned the Green Climate Fund. This report has been given just before the COP28, because the COP28 this year will talk about climate change, and this is the first time that health will be also discussed during this meeting. So it's a very, very important time now. And in this report, so she mentioned the Green Climate Fund, and if I took my note, so she mentioned that you finance 20 projects on adaptation, and both adaptation and mitigation, as you explained to us, for more than $1 billion. And out of this funding, more than $200 million went for projects with potential health benefit. And she lists some projects that in fact improve water and food security. As you mentioned, you have a action that is health, food, and water security. So it seems that, as you mentioned, you are more in adaptation and mitigation, but probably they expect to see more action now also in health mitigation, action, and health co-benefit, I would say, that have mutual benefits. So it seems that when I discuss with you, clearly the Green Climate Fund has also this in mind and want to participate even more in health problem. And it is good also to hear that, as you know, research against infectious disease is really hardly sustainable in terms of model. Industry don't want to take too many risks. So in your case, you just explained to us that your really foundation is helping industry to take risk, and you do not expect really short-term benefit or profit. So it is really a nice model. So in one hand, we have the Green Climate Fund that is doing finance a lot of things for climate fund action, but they do not claim to work too much on health now. And on the other hand, we have the Right Foundation that is not claiming to do action against climate fund, but in fact they are climate change, I would say, but in fact they are funding a lot of action already. So it's very important to have both of these foundations, I think, here today, and to see how they converge really now more in developing more funding to fight infectious disease sensitive to climate change. So it is a really good news, and I hope we can make big advance in scientific research and also development of technologies that will be useful for law and LMCI, in fact. So if I want to discuss about, I'm very interested about this financial structure. You mean like you do not expect short-term profit. So in this, usually, do you have the feeling that the actors of this field are ready to follow you easily, or which kind of argument do you need to give? Because like Right Foundation mentioned, they developed some evidence generation program, because usually stakeholder will want evidence, we want number, quantitative data. So do you think usually you have enough of this data, or should we work more to provide more evidence to these people to convince them to keep investing for research against infectious disease?
It's a tough question, I think, because I'm not a specialist of that domain, and so for me it will be difficult to answer the question in terms of data and availability of data for investing. But I just wanted to highlight maybe a few features to maybe to explain how we can fund and finance maybe projects in this field. First of all, but Dimitri, you mentioned we developed and we financed a lot of projects in the past regarding health, but maybe more health as a co-benefit and maybe not really completely as the core of the project. So that's why maybe it's something we can do maybe more in the future. Taking into consideration health as the core of future project. You can see also that it's clearly part of the 8 results areas we developed for the fund. So that's why I think it's one of the major evolution could be also this evolution. You mentioned also the question of risk. I think risk is critical. It's the critical part of an investment, and particularly in developing countries. So, yeah, we are able to take risk, and we are able to take risk because we have, a specific capital structure with a sort of this fundraising coming from developed countries every 4 years. So we don't have a sort, and the board, GCF board, doesn't define a sort of target in terms of profitability. So we have time to invest. We can take risk, and we have the capacity of developing and of using a sort of patient capital also for project. The question afterwards will be also to target maybe the main goals of the investment. Is it something maybe more related to public sector? Is it maybe more related to private sector with a sort of partnership with private sector, private bodies, and so on? So that's why we have to define that to find the right financial structure to do so. Because once again, we are able to use a wide scope of financial instrument, and also it's really a bespoke approach. So for every project, we are able to provide a real specific financial structuring, and also dedicated to the project, the outcomes, the countries, and also what we want to achieve, if I can say that, in the project. So that's why we can do that, and I think that health, because I'm very impressed by the results, but also this trend, and also which will be, I think, in the future more and more crucial for everyone. And so I think GCF could be really interested in having more, project in this field, and also being part of a discussion with potential investors and potential actors. Because to wrap up my explanation, I want just to insist on the fact that we want to create also partnership between partners and partnership with Green Climate Fund. So I think that also it's the purpose of such an event is also gathering people and gathering institutions in this field, and it's GCF target to try to build this partnership.
Okay. Thank you very much. So it's a good news because, as Jerome Kim mentioned from IVI, there is currently really a big funding gap between the high-profile diseases and other. Mainly finance go to HIV, malaria, TB these days, but we really need much more fund, and Green Climate Fund probably can help in this. So just we need just a few words about Johan, probably about what you think about this problem of climate change. Johan is working in IPK, and we exchange a lot about this climate change sensitive disease, and we try to apply it for fund, of course, for these topics. And do you want to give a little introduction about your action and what you...
I think like the other two panels, I'll try to give a brief introduction of IPK on behalf of other members. So IPK now, next year, is going to be 20th anniversary of IPK. And till 20 years, IPK has been focusing on infectious disease. but not only on infectious disease, but the translational aspects of infectious disease. So in terms of diseases, we've been working on tuberculosis, HIV, dengue, SFTS, malaria, leishmania, so on and so forth. And for the interventions, the translational aspect, we've been focusing on drugs. But it takes a very long time to deliver any kind of drugs. It takes like 10 years. And so other teams started to work on diagnostics and other interventions. But when it comes to climate change sensitive infectious disease, I think there's a bit of different interface, I guess. So unlike the human-to-human contacts, there's vector-borne, waterborne, foodborne interfaces. So in terms of research area, it could be much more diverse. Rather than just focusing on the controlling the disease itself, I think we should try to approach in different ways, so we can control, let's say, the vectors, or to control the quality of waters and so on and so forth. And I think IPK should expand our scope rather than too much focusing on the infectious disease itself. Yeah.
Thank you. And also, Joanne is part of some committee, in fact, about the Korean government that tried to set up some programs. So I would like to maybe you to explain a bit to the audience the program the Korea government and try to set up, at least the scientific community try to set up.
Yeah, so I have to speak on behalf of maybe other entity again, but now the Korean government, I guess NIH, is also wants to play some role in climate change related infectious diseases. And because as I explained, there's many interfaces. Not only one ministry can actually deal with this issue. So it should be very transversal actions among different ministries. But I guess one of the difficulty is that, it took 150 years to have 1.7 degrees increase of the temperature. Of course, it's going up rapidly, but it's difficult for the policymakers to actually have a feel of the impact, the immediate impact. And it's very difficult for the scientists to advocate the situation and then persuade the policymakers to make actions and put some funds and then be prepared. So I think those type of area is where such type of organization, GCF Right Fund, can also play a role in playing action together to explain the current situation of, let's say, climate crisis, I guess. So I think that's very important.
And if we want to finish on this as well, but because I think experience in Korea is very important, and we realize when we discuss that sometimes the climate change sensitive diseases are not a research topic very well developed in Korea, because it links more to preparedness maybe. And there is a recent example that we face is that, for example, I invited Luisa Barzon to talk about all these infections that happen in Italy, because Italy, if you look at the map, it is at the same latitude than Korea. Of course, it's not the same temperature, but at least the same latitude. And they experience dengue, West Nile, chikungunya infection already. And we have some similar species of mosquito. And now, Aedes japonicus and Aedes coreicus, in fact, invaded Italy and Europe, as he mentioned. And it seems that the scientists in Italy, in fact, try to contact some scientists in Korea to know more about this species of mosquito. And there is very sparse information about this mosquito. So I think it will be good to improve the research in this field. What do you think?
Yeah, so I think it's a very important issue you brought up. So maybe some people maybe have noticed that in the prior slides, Aedes coreicus Actually, it's named after Korea. And now it's in Italy. And the susceptibility of pathogens to Aedes coraicus is not very well characterized. So only West Nile has been characterized. And there's GGV, yeah. But there's, she showed us dengue and Aedes coraicus, but the direct correlation or competency has not been identified. But when you go out the door in the summer, you'll encounter Aedes coraicus oftentimes. And there's about 22 different mosquitoes that transmit diseases in Korea. 8 Anopheles responsible for malaria. And there's many Aedes, and there's also Curex. But the vector research, I think there's more room to do some vector-related infectious disease research. And I think the government should first invest on the capacity building of this area. We need more expertise, but we also need facilities. So only one place they could do vector plus pathogen research is in KDCA to do some artificial infections and so on and so forth. But in the private sectors or in universities, I think those type of capability I think is very essential to identify the nodes, characterize the nodes, and then have more information about these vectors that is related to vector that is related to climate change diseases.
Okay, thank you, John. So, in fact, time was flying already. We just have a longer coffee break, and so the session is shorter than we expected. But it was good anyway to have discussion. I think probably people have good discussion at coffee break, and we had good discussion. So, I'm sorry, maybe we don't have time for a question now, but do not hesitate probably to discuss with the speaker before leaving after the last session. So thank you very much again for participating to this roundtable, and we move on to the next session. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for that lively discussion. Let's give our panel members and our moderator another big round of applause.